Well, thanks very much, Holly. And can I say a big thank you to everyone who's taken the time to join the meeting? I know many of people on the call will be joining the rallies tomorrow and will be attending the conference in one form or another. I also just wanted to say that I can't remember, it's such a long time since I've been at a meeting where I think there's been three such outstanding speeches, different speeches, but making some very common points that I want to repeat and re-emphasize. So I think it's been brilliant contributions, and it's been an absolute pleasure to work alongside people and the organizer of this meeting over the last period. And I also, Holly, want to add my solidarity to Beth and also to Andrew Feinstein and Jamie Driscoll, because I do think that while there's been a lot of talk about the infighting, I do wish that people do stop for just 1 minute to think of what those three people have been put through with the internal wranglings of other people, never them, where their reputations have been traduced and they've been put through an incredibly stressful time for being brave enough to volunteer to do a job they were asked to do by Jeremy and others many months ago. So it's great that Beth is here, and certainly I'm sure she has all of our solidarity, as do Jamie and Andrew. So the point that I want to make, the meetings talk about your party where next. So I want to just build on the commonality amongst the speakers so far. And I want to put some things in a fairly stark way, because I think it's really important that at meetings like this, we address the key thing, which is what we need, what we are trying to build, and what mistakes that the left keeps repeating over years and years and years that we must avoid if this project is going to be a success. But I think all of that has to be put in a context. And the context is this, that all of us, I think, are living through probably the most dangerous political times that we have seen in decades. In the last 6 months, Tommy Robinson, a fascist, has organised marches in this country that saw 150,000 people march in London, hundreds, if not thousands, march in Newtown in mid Wales, as well as in Scotland. That march was organised by fascists who believe that their moment has come. Those street fascists who mobilised 150,000 people are seeing Nigel Farage and Reform try to popularise their divisive policies and win elections in this country. So we are in an incredibly dangerous moment. It is such a dangerous moment that we should all pause to stop and think that if this project we are trying to build is not successful, the immediate and midterm future for all of us and our children and all of our communities looks bleaker than at any time that I can remember. And having lived through the miners' strike and the poll tax and all the other things that we saw in the 70s, 80s and 90s, it's quite a statement to say that this could be bleaker than all of those times. But that is the danger we're in. We also live in a time that since we last met at a meeting like this about a month ago in the Friends Meeting House, I just made a quick note of what the Labour government has been up to. Now, we know about all their crimes in the first year, but just in the last month, they've told us they're going to abandon trial by jury. Whoever thought that a so-called Labour government would treat the people of this country to the denial of the basic right for people to be tried and judged by their peers? They've told us that the asylum problem we have in this country with too much immigration, aping the language of Nigel Farage, means that they intend to introduce a situation where people will have to wait 20 years before they're given the right to remain in this country. That is inhumanity at its worst. Tonight, we've heard, after all these days of telling us they won't break manifesto commitments over income tax, that they have indeed broken a manifesto commitment because they have abandoned their commitment that people will have the right of protection against unfair dismissal from day one. A manifesto pledge just been jettisoned today because the House of Lords are being tricky. Well, if a Labour government can abandon workers' rights because unelected lords are being a bit difficult, it tells us everything we need to know about their priorities. It also is a bit of a wake-up call to our trade unions, and particularly our trade union leaders, far too timid and far too quiet in opposing the attacks of this Labour government. Indeed, many of them yesterday welcoming the budget, who we are told today are supportive of what Labour are doing over the abandonment of employment rights. And I will give a shout out to Sharon Graham, who was first out of the traps, making it clear that her and Unite are absolutely opposed to what's happening. Yesterday, we saw a budget that the IFS today has said does nothing to tackle the crisis in the cost of living that working class people in this country have experienced now for years. When you add into that the enabling of a genocide, the banning under terrorist legislation of Palestine Action, and so much more, we know that this Labour government is a disaster. It is enabling the rise of reform. And then we look at reform. Now, this morning, you won't probably be able to see this, but I received this through my letterbox. It's a letter that everybody in Wales received from Nigel Farage. And Nigel Farage has written to everybody in Wales, and what he has done is a very clever positioning to appeal to the working class. He is appealing to the working class people in the valleys and across Wales to accept that our political system is broken, that our public services are in turmoil, that Labour, Plaid Cymru and the Tories have failed. And he's deliberately pitching to win working class voters. He's trying to do that on the basis of failed public services and poverty, tells people in Wales 1 in 3 kids are living in poverty, but goes on to make the case that this is all because of immigration. Now, what it tells us is that Farage understands that working class people are fed up with a broken political system, and he is trying to win them to the politics of division. The only way to tackle the rise of reform, it seems to me, is to accept that the political centre in Britain and across Europe is collapsing, that the only way to fight the far right is to give a socialist radical alternative to win working class people to the idea that there is another way. And that is the situation that we face at the founding of our conference. So I think it is incumbent on us to say that if the stakes are that high, we have to honestly assess how we're doing. And whilst I agree with the previous speakers who said it's great that we're going to have 50,000 people and a great launch conference, if we're honest, we have to say things are not going very well. In fact, if we're honest and we look at the statistics, they're worrying. 800,000 people registered an interest in this party in the summer. 56,000 have become members. That is a 7% conversion rate of people who are interested to join us. When I was on the inaugural committee along with Beth, we were told that a pessimistic assumption would be 25% of the registered interest would be converted into party members. If that was the case, there would be 200,000 members of your party, not 50,000. We were told that the conference over the weekend would attract 13,000 delegates, so many people that we'd have to have 4 sessions and people could only attend half a session each. Now the predicted turnout is between 2,000 to 3,000. Still a massive turnout, but way below what we thought it would be. Now that tells us that we do have a problem. We have a problem that the enthusiasm that everybody felt in the summer has been diminished. And it's been diminished in part because I think of the infighting that has seen us take such a disgraceful turn of events. I mean, whoever would have thought that Zara Sultana would turn up to a public launch of your party to speak with Jeremy and be met on the door and told she would not be allowed access to the building until Jeremy had spoken and left, and was made to sit in a coffee bar for 1 hour and couldn't even enter the room. Now, if our co-leaders are coexisting in that type of turmoil, no wonder only 7% of people have signed up. But there are deeper reasons than just the division. And I just want to focus as I draw to an end on what those issues might be. Well, for me, it's about asking ourselves, what are we trying to build and what are we not trying to build? I think we are trying to build a mass socialist party of the working class. That means, as does socialism mean, we have to convince a majority of our ideas, of our tactics, and of our policies. We have to convince a majority, but in convincing a majority, be prepared to ensure we protect minorities, not the other way round. If we do not convince the majority through class politics, rather than orient ourselves to identity politics because we believe minorities need to be protected, we will drive away the thousands and millions that we have to convince. To convince working class people means focusing on what matters to them every day. So my view is that this conference and the reset that we need should not just be about this constitutional matter, that procedural matter. It should be a total and utter reset to launch a party of the working class based on what the working class need us to talk about. They need to be building council houses, building public services, freeing our trade unions, nationalising our utilities, redistribution of wealth, tackling inequality, fighting poverty, rebuilding our NHS and social care, tackling the climate catastrophe, fighting racism, opposing all discrimination, and opposing militarism and the arms race. These are the things that are the key to what most working class people want to hear to solve their everyday problems with a cost of living crisis and an unfair society. To get those things across to the working class, we need a party that mobilises in communities, in workplaces, in trade unions, and mobilise people in the social movements and in the campaigns. It means ultimately the test for us is not can we sell a newspaper or give out a leaflet, but can we knock on the door in the most working class communities and convince those people toying with voting reform they need to look leftwards to a completely different type of society. That's the reset we need. And comrades, that means being very clear. We are not trying to build a revolutionary party. We are trying to build a mass party of the working class. And those two things are not the same. Revolutionary parties and revolutionary left organisations in Britain have fantastic people in them. Many of those are at the core to some amazing campaigns, such as the Stop the War movement, the Anti-Nazi League, the anti-poll tax movements. But those organisations are seeking to build through different tactics, often trying to recruit people in ones and twos, to make interventions with a revolutionary programme and a list of demands that to some seems like a purity programme that everybody needs to sign up to. A mass party of the working class is not that. It is not about seeking to convince people about the road to revolution and everything has to be signed off on day one. It is completely the opposite. When we have party members and activists spending more time telling us who is not welcome and what is not acceptable, rather than telling the working class what they need to solve their problems, we're in danger of creating a bigger left party that talks to itself and the already committed, rather than that party of the working class. And that means I want to be quite open and say it is a mistake to tell people that you can't join unless you're anti-Zionist. It is a mistake to tell people you cannot join if you are socially conservative. It is completely wrong to tell women who are fighting against violence against women and girls that if they are fighting for their sex-based rights, they are transphobic and they are not welcome. Because at a stroke, what we're doing is turning away tens and hundreds of thousands of people who we need with us, not against us. So I want to finish by just making this point. If those are the mistakes that the left has made, we must learn from them. If we want to be a mass party, not just a bigger left-wing current, we have to change the way that we operate. And that means not just focusing on core working class issues. It means changing the way that the left operates. It means stop lecturing people that we are always right and they are always wrong, and it means listening. It means recognizing that it is lazy and politically wrong, and I'll use this example, to accuse women, and indeed even me in the last 2 weeks, of being a Nazi and a fascist and being transphobic, when I am very public in saying I am not transphobic, I believe in trans rights. But I also believe that women have the right to defend their rights and argue against those trying to delete sex discrimination and sex as a protected characteristic. And if there is a conflict in those rights, our job as socialists is to say we stand with trans people, we stand with women, and where there is a conflict, we will work out a solution that protects all. It is not to say this is a wedge issue, and if you are not with me, you are against me, and particularly if that means turning thousands and thousands away. So, comrades, my appeal is we build a mass party, we focus on the core that we agree with, and then we say where we disagree. What socialists of yesteryear did was they had meetings and they discussed things openly in a rational way. They didn't tell people they weren't welcome, there would be no platform in them, or they should go and look elsewhere. When Zara tells people this is not the party for them, if they do not agree with all her red lines, she is mistaken, because she's turning away the people she has to convince. When Jeremy's people operate in the worst form of labour movement bureaucratic ways to try and seize control, Jeremy is wrong. And my view is that what we want is Jeremy and Zara in a collective leadership. We want to talk to the millions and mobilize tens of thousands, but we do it on uniting on the things that people need to hear and agreeing in a tolerant, respectful way. We will discuss those things that we differ on. If we do that, this can be a transformational moment. If we don't, my fear is we just become a bigger party of the left. Nigel Farage and the far right will mop up and we will rue the consequences for years. Thanks very much.